Yeah, there's actually some really interesting parallels between the, I guess, sort of the gospel written by L. Ron Hubbard about, Xenu and this great alien battle and these, was it the Thetans being destroyed and their spirits trapped in these volcanoes and they're there
Right.
buried, but their spirits are still lingering around, corrupting everything on Earth.
Hmm.
Anyone who has listened to my recent episodes about the book of Enoch
Yep.
will be very familiar with the story in the Book of Watchers and the parallels
Yeah.
between that and Hubbard's Scientology. They fit very well, and it makes me wonder because Enoch had sort of popped up in popular culture at that time. And
Hmm.
a lot of these weird sort of like mystics were sort of latching on to that and
Yep.
other writings. And as a science fiction writer, as he was, I can see him looking at that and saying, "Oh man, this would make a great story if I
Yeah.
sort of modernized it."
Yeah.
And then
Right.
he's like, "Wait, I could do it tax free."
Yeah, right. And
Um,
build people out of money. Yeah,
yeah,
he wrote an
uh,
essay too at some point about how to make a fake religion that actually
yeah,
describes what he eventually did. And anyway,
right,
but that's
right.
if only we had this kind of documentation for early Christianity that we would.
Right, right. And Scientology did they tried their best to sort of do the way Christians did and delete a bunch of this stuff, but unfortunately there were some trials, and a lot of this stuff became
Yeah,
public knowledge.
yeah,
I
and
downloaded gigs of
right.
like Scientology, basically gospels. I have it on my
Yeah,
computer.
they have
It's
a
amazing
multi-volume
stuff.
set of textbooks that you're only allowed to read at certain levels, and a
Mm,
lot of these have been smuggled out. So if you know the right people, you can
yeah,
get a hold of the physical copies of these things that they printed. I actually
yeah,
got
yeah.
to peruse some myself in Canada. Someone showed up at an event, and we were hanging out and having drinks at a bar. And he says, "Hey, look what I've got!" And he's got all of these actual Scientology books,
Wow.
and it was fascinating to look through them. They're clearly written by a lunatic, but
Yeah, I
like I
looked at
can't
like
even
some of
tell you
his
how
his
crazy this shit is.
writings,
But
and it's
even like formatting is bizarre. Like there'll be a page with like random words, not even formatted logically. Like what on earth is going on here? But yeah, no. So that's true. But it's interesting to point out like this whole idea of modernization, right? So it's the Book of Enoch, and all he's done is modernize it with modern ideas, space, aliens, and things like that, sci-fi concepts. So he took the same story and modernized it. This is actually very common in mythology. There's a classic example of there's this classic ghost story in ancient Greece and Rome about Lady Philinion, and it's this kind of like a vampire story, sort of a revenant story, but it's set in ancient Greece with Greek characters and so on. It's a Greek story. This same ghost story pops up in Ireland 2,000 years later, 1,500 years later, and it's the exact same story, but it's all been modernized. So now it's Irish. It's an Irish princess. It's everybody's got Irish names. It's set in an Irish town. It's like Irish customs are surrounding it, and so they've taken the same story and they've modernized it. And when you look at the Gospels of Jesus, they've done the same thing. So they you have the stories of Elijah and you have the stories of Moses, which are some of the most common stories that people taught to sort of communicate values and ideas. When the Christians came out, they felt that these were obsolete. So what they did is they modernized it. They modernized it to a Roman period and then renamed the hero from Moses to Jesus, or from Elijah to Jesus, right? And they took all these stories about Moses and Elijah, fixed them up, like made them communicate the values they wanted, that they thought were better than the way the stories were originally told, and then made them stories about Jesus. So Jesus is the new Moses. He's the new Elijah. And so it's the exact same kind of updating of mythology. And of course, none of the people exist in any of these versions of the myth. It's just they're just modernizing the myth by taking new customs and new values and ideas, reconstructing the stories and putting them in a modern setting, what was to them a modern setting. And then that's how they would revolutionize and revamp the mythology, right? And so that this happens all the time in mythology in general and in religion in general. And even the John Frum case is an example of this. With the cargo cults is, well, the fabulous cargo will come on magical airplanes and ships, right? Let's like, so they're taking the idea and updating it to modern technology, modern imperialism. Even the fact that they were getting the communications on telegraph poles. Here's this modern Western technology that mysteriously worked. They didn't know how it worked. Somehow people can communicate across the world through telegraph poles. We don't understand, but so if shaman can go up there and listen to them, obviously, then the spirits can communicate to us through the shaman. But it's an updated version of what had come before. And so mythology happens like this all the time. And you can really only understand the Gospels if you understand that this is just an updated mythology. They're taking Moses, they're taking Elijah, and other characters, and then importing them onto Jesus, retelling them, improving them. And that's what Jesus is. He's this voice piece, a fictional voice piece for their ideology, just like John Frum, just like Osiris became, and so on.
So it almost sounds like this sort of religion is the result of maybe an anthropological phenomenon. You get a group of people together in a certain like social context, and this is something that can evolve out of it. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, and I mean, there are many attributes of the political situation that are very common in these kinds of situations. But the overall story, the one thing that's most important, is that the old religion isn't working anymore. In some way, it is not responding to current realities. It either doesn't explain them very well, or it doesn't address them very well, or views and mores have evolved so that the old morality no longer makes sense. So the old religion is basically broken. It no longer speaks to the current civilization, the current realities, the current culture that they're in. And so there becomes this need. Now, if the religion continues to work for people, if, for example, they're doing all right financially, if they're able to feed their kids, and there's not a lot of political violence and stuff, then that's okay. They can sort of work their way around it. But when people start to become destitute and oppressed and on the end of the rope, right, where you've got oppression, where you've got, the temple cult was completely corrupt and in collusion with these Roman invaders. Where is God in all of this? Like our society and our religion is no longer serving our interests. It's no longer helping us. Look how we're suffering. And so when you have that sort of extreme destitution combined with imperial invading power, you have collusion of the traditional authorities with that power. So that's sort of discrediting the traditional religion. There's this move to kind of create a new religion that sort of is God speaking out and saying, no, that stuff, forget that stuff. We're updating. We're giving you something new. And of course, it'll always be explained as really ancient, but this is the ancient thing that was lost or hidden. So it is still ancient, but in reality, it's new. And it new, and it speaks to the new realities. It teaches the values you want to teach. It explains the realities that you're dealing with. Why are the Romans in charge? Why can we never defeat them? Well, like God should be here helping us defeat them, and yet we're always losing. Why is that the case? So you need this new religion to explain that and give people a working religion that works for them and allows them to achieve the things in their life that they want, and feel like they understand the world. It gives them that confidence that the world is no longer confusing to them. And we see that today with conspiracy theories like QAnon and stuff like that. It has the exact same motivation, which is certain people don't understand how the world is working the way it's not working for them anymore, and they don't understand why. And so they come up with this elaborate, bizarre conspiracy theory that's comforting to them because it allows them to understand, gives them the feeling that they understand what's really going on, and makes them feel like they're the insiders who have the solution, right? And so that's exactly the kind of mindset that leads to these religious revolutions as well. The cargo cults and Christianity, the ghost dance movement, and all these other, even Islam can be explained partially in this sense. So